Welcome, new GMs and fellow RPGers, to the good, the bad, and the Goblin. This is going to be a shortened review of the Dungeons and Dragons starter sets, Lost Mine of Phandelver. I'm your resident game master, and this is JBTTG. So, as I said, welcome to the good, bad, and the Goblin. Let's cut right to the chase, right? What would I rate this starter set? I'd give the starter set 8 out of 10 spell slots any day of the week. And my reasons for? Well, those are coming. But let's start at the beginning, right? What do you get with this starter set? With Lost Mine of Phandelver, you get a 64-page booklet. This has everything a new or existing GM needs to both start and run the campaign. You get a 32-page booklet for your players. This has all the information your players need that will take them from levels 1 through 5 as the campaign progresses. You get 5 pre-generated characters, each of these with their own character sheet and reference material on the back. Of course, not to mention the stats and stuff that'll be on the front. And then you get a set of game dice. So, Lost Mine of Phandelver is a shorter campaign. It's designed for 1 through 5 players. But just on a side note, a bit of new GM advice if you're new to any of this. I'd suggest grabbing at least 3 players if you can. I think this would help keep the overall balance of the campaign intact without you having to make too many adjustments. So, how easy is the Lost Mine of Phandelver for a brand new GM? I would say that this is one of the easier campaigns for a new GM to get into for several reasons. The first being that the rule sets and the DM manual are very easy to understand. They're extremely well defined. And you're also not dealing with, a 200-page DM manual and a 200-page player manual and your monster manual. Everything you need is within those 64 pages of the DM booklet and 32 pages of the player rulebook. And if you get stuck with defining, certain rules or stats, etc., you can always just jump online. The answers are always somewhere on the interwebs. And second, this is a shorter campaign, right? So a group of players won't have to really commit to like over a year's worth of time just to play through it. Of course, that depends on how often you play each month, how long your sessions are. As an example, it took my players and me about a year to run Lost Mine of Phandelver, but we were playing every other week for roughly 3-hour sessions. And of course, for holidays and birthdays and various things, we miss some here and there. So, depending on how committed you can be and how often you can play, you might be able to breeze right through this thing. How good are the pre-made characters? Well, in my opinion, the 5 pre-made characters are a great selection for this beginner campaign. The pre-made characters include a halfling rogue, a human noble fighter, a dwarf cleric, a human folk hero fighter, and a high elf wizard. So it's a nice rounded collection of both races and classes. The 2 positives of these pre-made characters are, number one, I think they provide a good balance for the party in general. You've got a nice balance of magic versus healing versus fighting capabilities. Again, great for a brand new party of 5 players. And then second, the characters themselves are easy enough to understand at levels 1 through 5, right? The complexities of role-playing characters, especially in D&D, such as like the wizard or the cleric, they don't really become prevalent until much higher levels, So being 1 through 5 characters allows all your players, especially if they're new to the game, a chance to grasp the fundamentals of each class and each race. So, is this campaign just for beginners? I would say absolutely not. I think Lost Mine of Phandelver can make for a great drop in or standalone adventure for players of any experience. There's enough classically manicured content in here for a fan of TTGs, or even fantasy, regardless of their experience as a player. Um, so if you're a seasoned GM with seasoned players, I say run this campaign. Go for it. Give it a look. Try it out. It's loads of fun. And then of course there is an expansion scheduled for release. I think this September of 2023. Phandelver and Below, the Shattered Obelisk. So with as much fun as me and my players had with Lost Mine of Phandelver, you can believe I'll be picking up Shattered Obelisk and checking it out. Is there any downside to playing Lost Mines of Phandelvers? If there's anything, it's goblins. Goblins, goblins, and more goblins. There's just too many goblins, right? I would advise here to change things up just a little bit. Read ahead, get an idea of what's coming in the next chapter or two, just to help add some variety and spice things up a little bit. I do feel like the goblins become a little redundant at by the midpoint of the campaign, but understandably so. It's an easy foe, an easy target, and goblins can be quite nasty as well. So there is a challenge there, I think, without being overbearing. But there are just a lot of goblins. So does this campaign need any tweaking? Well, if you're a new GM, the biggest question after ease of use for yourself and enjoyability for your players should always be, what alterations do I need to make to this campaign? Almost all campaigns need some sort of feathering to either help you along, make it more enjoyable, make the story make a little more sense, etc., etc. But on this, in regard to Lost Mine of Phandelver, I'd say there's very few alterations needed. And it's easy enough just to drop in another goblin if you forget one was supposed to run away and alert the others. It's easy enough to remove some if the combat feels like it's leaning towards territory in favor of your NPCs, or simply just make something up to get either you or your players out of a sticky situation. While Lost Mine of Phandelver provides plenty of depth and narrative and story, it's not so laden with details that you won't be able to adjust easily enough on the fly, or in your preparation. I'll have some advice for these things in future videos, especially in the video that I plan to make for a chapter-by-chapter breakdown, but that's to come. As it stands, though, Lost Mine of Phandelver is a pretty well-written, tight campaign with very little tweaking needed. So in closing, all in all, like I said, Lost Mine of Phandelver would get an 8 out of 10 spell slots for me. Maybe even a 9. No campaign is ever perfect. They all lack something in one way or another, But then, if you're a new GM especially, that's our job as game masters, to make the content both interesting and enjoyable. So my final word is Lost Mine of Phandelver is a great campaign for both beginners and experienced TTG role players, right? There's just a lot of fun to be had within these pages. And I would urge you, new, old, experienced, I would check it out.